Hey guys, so I'm back with another video, and in this video we are going to create a chat application using Blazor WebAssembly. So without wasting any time, let's get started. So I'm creating a new project and we'll create Blazor WebAssembly app next, and let's call it BlazingChat, and we will use .NET 6 because it is LTS, and we'll use ASP.NET Core hosted. So using this, it actually creates a wrapper server-side project for Blazor WebAssembly so that we can have our APIs directly hosted on the same domain, we could say. But if you want, you can create a separate API project and separate WebAssembly client. But for now, I am going to use the same. So it is going to create a project for us. It will basically create three projects. So server, this is actually a web project, .NET 6 web. Then this client, this is Blazor WebAssembly project, and this shared, this is basically a class library. So this server app, so we can have our controllers in here, and it will host the Blazor WebAssembly app inside it. So both of these are going to be hosted on the same domain, so there is no problem of course cross origin resource sharing, all those stuff. So, and if you want these separate, so you will simply need to have two things from the client side. If you will see, I am in the client project, this program.cs. So we are registering HTTP client, and we are using base address as new URI builder host environment base address. That is the same address where this Blazor WebAssembly app is hosted. And if you are going to use a different project hosted on different port and different URL, then you can simply, you need to change this base URL for the API in client side, and you will have to enable the cross origin resource sharing in the API project. So these two things you will have to do if you want to go that route. Okay, so bootstrap is already there. Yeah, so now this server app, this will be the startup project, and we can simply check. So this should be running. So I'll give you a brief introduction. We are going to create a chat application, so kind of one-to-one chat. There could be multiple instances. We will directly, the user will directly go to the URL, the app. It will register itself, the user will register itself, and then he can join the main chat application. He can see all the previous chats or all the online users, and then he can start a conversation with any user. So that is what we are going to do. So first thing, we will need SignalR in this for this real-time chat messages. So if you must be familiar with SignalR. So SignalR basically a tool, we can say, provided by ASP.NET Core team, which enables two-way, full duplex two-way communication. So it uses WebSockets, server-side events, and long polling. So it is advanced enough, it can check the user, the connection basically, and it can choose the best protocol for that communication. If the client server communication that allows the WebSocket, it will use WebSocket, and if it does not allow, then it will fall back to server side events, and that is also not allowed, then it will fall back to long polling using the HTTP polling request basically. So it is advanced enough and smart enough to fall back to the correct approach, and it handles disconnection and reconnection things. So it is very powerful. So this will have some user management also. So we are going to use entity framework for this. So this server app, this is our API app. So we can create another project if we want, or we can add simply inside this only. So I'm going to add data logic and data entities inside this main project only. So let's create a new folder, and I'm going to call it, let's say, data only. And then I'm going to create a new folder again for entities. Okay, and then in entities I'm going to create our entity. So first thing, we will have user, and this user, it can have, for now let's use the integer ID only. Then this will have name, so first name and last name, but for simplicity let's take name only. Then we can store when this user was added to our system, so maybe added on, and for simplicity that should be it. And then we can have here username and password. So username, I am going to use plain username and password for simplicity, but in real world projects, in main production apps, you are going to use some maybe some third party identity provider, or maybe SSO or identity server, or maybe at least salted hashed password, right? So that will be the safer to use. So this is simply just for simplicity, so I'm going to use the plain password. This is not recommended for production apps. So ID, name, added on, username and password, that's all. So for user, then the second thing, we will have messages, right? Or we can say chats. So message, for this message we can have ID, message ID, and let's take long, or maybe we can have GUID, but with long it can auto generate the IDs and auto increment, so let's keep it long only. Then we will have who is sending this message, so we will have from ID, so int from ID, then second to ID, and then actual message content, so let's call it content only. And then when this message was sent, so date time sent on. Okay, so using this we can check, so who is sending message, to whom he is sending. So this is basically sender, to ID is receiver, content is the actual content, and sent on is the date time when the message was being sent. And I think these two will give us everything, right? Yeah. Yeah, so next thing, let's add the entity framework NuGet packages. So we will add entity framework core, and let's add relational, and we're using .NET 6, so let's use the version 6 of these packages. So install relational, will not relational, let's install SQL Server, so it will internally install the relational as well. 613 SQL Server, so it will install abstraction, analyzer, relational, all these. Accept. And then we are going to use code first migrations. So in order to run migrations from package manager console, we need these tools, Microsoft.entity framework core.tools NuGet package, same version 6, and this is also installed fine. So it gives us these commands: add migration, and update database, script migration, all these. So we have added entity framework core, SQL Server tools, fine. Now for user, let's add the table attribute and then name of the table. It is not, if the names are same, then there's no need to add this table attribute, but I like it explicit sometimes. So message, then this is key name. So this is required, and if we have added this required without a question mark, then this is automatically required, but still I use explicit data annotations. So required, and then we know this is not going to be Unicode, so we will set it Unicode false. So this will basically changes the type of this column in the database. By default Unicode is true, that means the type of name column, it will be and varchar, but now we have changed it, so it will be varchar only. And then max length we are allowing, let's say 25 full name. Added name is fine, then username, this is also required, and Unicode false again. And then max length for username, maybe 30, or let's take 50, not more than that. Then password also required, and it can have Unicode. And then max length for password, let's take 20, that's more than enough. And then we came to message, this is the key, from ID to ID, and this content. So this is required, first thing. And max length, it can have Unicode. So the max length, let's say for now we are supporting 500 characters. Then sent on, this is date time. And for from ID and to ID, both of these IDs are basically foreign keys for this user only. So let's add those virtual properties here. User, from, user. Okay, let's have it virtual, and then to user. Fine, let's move it to its own class. So we have user and we have message, these two entities we have. Now next thing, let's add a EF core DB context. So it will be a class, and let's call it data context or chat context or BlazingChat context. Let's call it chat context. So this should inherit from DB context. We can have this constructor, so it will have chat context options, base options, fine. And then we will have both of those as DB set properties. DB set user, user from entities, users, and then message, messages. So we have these two. We have DB context in place, and we don't need any extra configuration for these entities. No, fine. Fine. So chat context is ready, DB context is ready basically. So in controller, let's add a controller for registering a user or logging in a user. So let's call it account controller, and this is a controller, let's delete it. We need a controller, add controller, API, account controller. Okay, so we have API controller this, and we will have two. So for this, we could have for data access layer, we can have a repository layer, we can have service layer, but for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to use this chat context directly inside my controller. Okay, but you can have abstraction and loosely coupled application you can create by implementing maybe a repository layer or service layer, so that you can easily unit test those, you can easily modify the implementation, so all those things. Okay, so I'm going to directly inject this. So constructor and chat context, and fine. So it will have two endpoints. First, public async task for now, I action result. Let's say register a user. Okay, and it will have all the properties of these: name, username, password, at least these three. Okay, so let's add a new folder here, or maybe add the folder. So basically I'm creating a DTO, data transfer object, lightweight class, so that is going to be used for this login or register API. So it will have those three properties. So because I'm going to use this inside our Blazor client app as well, so the best place to add it is this shared project. So let's add it here. So we'll call it class, and then we'll call it, let's say, register DTO. Public class register DTO. It will have three properties. So let's copy these from here only. It will have name, username, and password. So Unicode, it is entity framework specific, so we don't need this. We don't need added on, but we need these three properties: name, username, and password. We can remove this. So in production apps, in real world app, you might want to have a confirm password also, so the user can be sure that what he's entering. Okay, name, username, password, and for this password, data type dot password, we can have this. Okay, fine. So register DTO. Now this account controller, this will have this register DTO. So for this, let's have a global usings file, so that we can have all these usings globally available. Global using this, and we can remove it from here, clear it. Yeah, fine. So register DTO, cancellation token. So it's always a best practice to have this cancellation token, so that it can, if there is some problem from the caller side, maybe when this request was going on, the browser got closed, or there was some problem with network, so it will automatically trigger this cancellation token to be cancelled, so it will cancel the execution. So it's always a good idea to have cancellation token at controller action levels. Okay, so we have this DTO. Now we want to register this DTO to our database. We have this chat context. So first thing, if the username already exists, in this case, first thing, let's try if uh, if this user already exists in our database, and we will check it on the basis of username. So let's call it db user equals, we will use chat context dot users dot as no tracking. It's always good idea to use as no tracking if we are not going to modify this object which we are querying. So it actually helps us in improving the performance and removing the overhead of change tracking. So entity framework ef core automatically does this change tracking for us. So whatever we are querying from the context, it actually enables all those for change tracking. So if we are making any change, then directly calling the save changes on that, so it automatically gets all the updated values from change tracking and then applies those. But in this case we are not modifying anything, so we can simply disable the change tracking for this particular query. So it will help us in optimizing this. So as no tracking, then we will say if any async, yeah, we can check any async. We don't need if db user, so we can use username x, so we can say any async. And if the u.username, u is from database, if this is equals to datu.username, if this is the case, in that case we should use if username exists, we are going to return maybe bad request because this username already exists, right? So model state dictionary, or we can have a object error. Okay, we can say this username already exists. If that's not the case, in this case, first thing we are going to do, we need to save this dtu, save this register user information to database. So we can have some mapper, maybe auto mapper, or we can create our own mapping details. Maybe we can add mapper here. So in that case it is not going to work because this register dtu, this does not know about the register, that user entity. We can have that in this. So maybe on this user entity we can have that, we can have some logic which actually converts the register dtu to this user. So we can have it here also. Maybe we can have some separate classes, some utilities for this conversion, or we can directly uh, use this wherever we are using. So for example, if we are using here, so we can directly convert it here. So it's up to you what we are using. So we need this user, and this is actually from entity, this one, and we need to have this id. It will be auto generated. Username we already got. Added on, it will be datetime.now. You can have your own datetime service, so that can have the details of all the offset and time zone and all those things, but for simplicity I'm using directly datetime.now. Next is name, so this also we have from, and password we have this plain password. So implement your own some secure password mechanism. Okay, for now we are using this plain password. So we have created this user object. Now we need to add this user object to our users. So we will use add async, we will use this user, then we will save it. So chat context that save changes async, and we will pass this cancellation token. We can pass this cancellation token to this also, right? Any async, yes, cancellation token, and same for add async cancellation token. So it is always a good idea to pass cancellation token. Whatever APIs uh, have this cancellation token implementation, we should pass cancellation token. Okay, if username exists, we are going to return bad request. If it does not exist, then it will continue. We are going to add it. So we have added this user. Now we will return a JWT token for this when the user is registered. So for now, just return okay user. Okay, and this will be an HTTP post and API account post, and let's call it register only. Then second thing, the second method we will have for login, public async task of I action result and login. Same thing, we need to have a login DTO. So register DTO, login DTO, it will have username and password, these two things, and move it to its own class. Change this sorry, login DTO, then cancellation token. So now we need to check if this username and password exists. So we will say user equals await the first or default async. So u dot username equals dto dot username, and u dot password equals dto dot password, and then second parameter cancellation token. So if user is null, that means credentials are not correct. So we will say maybe not found, or we can check first. We will check username. If that username does not exist, we will return not found. If that username exists, then we will check password. If password is not right for that username, then we will simply throw simply send bad request with password is not correct or invalid credentials, right? So for this we will use bad request only, and we will say invalid or incorrect credentials. And if this was fine, for now we are returning this user directly, but actually we want to return a JWT token with all the user details. Okay, so this will also be HTTP post with the name login. So we are done from here. Next thing, let's add a new get package for JWT authentication. So it will come from JWT authentication. I don't remember the name. Microsoft authentication. Okay. Microsoft Microsoft dot ASP.NET Core dot authentication, something like the authentication dot JWT error. We need this. What? Yeah, 6, version 6. Install it and fine. We have installed it. Okay. So now we need to enable this. We are in program.cs for this server. So we need to enable builder dot services dot add. Okay, but before that we didn't add db context, right? Okay, let's go. Let's add authentication, and then we need to have what all options we have. Dot add jwt bearer. And it has options. Okay, fine. So for first options, basic authentication sign in, default authentication scheme. It will be JWT bearer extensions dot. Do we have authentication scheme here? JWT bearer options. JWT authentication scheme, something like this. It should be. Let me search for this. JWT bearer defaults. JWT bearer defaults dot authentication scheme, yeah. And options dot default challenge schema also. We need this only. Then for this add JWT bearer. Here we need to add the token validation parameters. So this is basically a property which will have issuer token validation parameters, default authentication type, audience validator authentication type, clock skew, and we need set all these properties, but we need a couple of to validate and generate the token. Okay, so I have this in one of my previous project. Let me copy that. Okay, so let's add a new class here. Let's call it token service and add this token service configuration static get token validation parameters sure validation audience lifetime signing key. We will get the valid issuer from here, valid audience, signing key, and all these. Okay, from this, for now, let's remove user. It will have this type of user, additional claim we can have, and we have ID and name, right? Yes. Okay, so this needs to remove all these things. So it needs couple of things from configuration. So okay, before that, let's add this token validation parameters. We can have this from token service dot get validation token parameters and I configuration. So we need to pass configuration builder dot configuration. So we have set this here and we should be good to go. Then this token service, let's register it. So we will register it builder dot services dot add transient and token service directly. You could have an interface and multiple implementations, maybe for mocking for unit test. So token service, we've registered it at transient and we need this token service inside our account controller. We need it here, token service, and when this is registration and this login, when these operations were successful, then both of these will use the same thing. So let's add a private method here, private void, and maybe generate token, and we will have user. So we can generate the token from this token service dot generate JWT, and it needs this user object and additional claims if any. We will see from user we are setting name identifier, that is ID, and name, that is actual name. So we should be good, we don't need any additional claims. It returns a string that is actually a token. So where token equals this, and we will return this token, or we let's add a response type, maybe auth response or response DTU, auth response DTU, public class auth response DTU, and we can create it as record. So it will have name and the token. So string name and string token. Auth response DTU. Fine. So we will return So auth response dto, and we will return new auth response dto. Name will come from user.name, and then this token. So we will return from here this generate token user. And the same thing we will use here. Okay, so token is in place. This is in place. Now for this token there is one missing piece. Generate token, go to this token service. So it needs couple of configurations: JWT, issuer, expire in minutes, issuer, and key. Fine, so let's add this in app settings dot maybe development. So JWT format, JWT, fine, and then it's an object with these things. So issuer, we will use the domain we are using. So the domain we are using is this one. So issuer is this. Then what else our configuration requires? Expire in minutes. Okay, so in minutes, maybe let's say 8 hours. So 8 hours, 480. The next thing again, issuer and key. This key, we need to add some long and secure key, right? So we should generate it. For now we can have this some random key, maybe some random key, whatever, which is secure or something like this. We need these three things, so I think we should be good. So JWT token side we are good. So the only missing piece is we have not registered our data context. So that is our chat context, right? This chat context. We need to register it. So builder.services.add db context, chat context. So it requires options dot use SQL server, and then we can set our connection string here, right? So for connection string we can get it from configuration, builder.configuration dot get connection string, and we can get it from also chat connection string, or maybe simply call it chat. So for this we need to add it to our app settings. So connection strings, and the key will be what we have used, and I'm using my local. So data source initial catalog, let's say BlazingChat, and integrated security, because I'm using Windows authentication. Trusted connection. Fine. So we should be good now. So we can check this using. Did it add Swagger? No, right? Okay, fine. No problem. So let's try to run it, and let me run the postman. So it's running on this port, this URL, and we have this postman. So let's try post account, and let's try if we can get to login. It says 404 not found. Account login. Account login API. API account login. Unsupported media type 415 post HTTP post login needs login DTO. Okay, and for this we need right this login DTO, and it has username and password. So unsupported media type body JSON, and we will have name, sorry, username, something, and then password, again some random string. System.invalid operation exception, use SQL Server call, Blazing Chat, because login failed for user. Okay, so the problem is we have generated it, but we have not created migrations, we have not generated our database. So that's the issue. So let's run the migrations. So add migration, and we need output in data folder and migrations. Okay, so migration name, initial migration. Oh, name mismatch. Okay, the size is zoomed out basically. So I don't know if you were able to see these things properly. Okay, I zoomed it. So now we have generated these migrations, initial migration, and it is in data migrations folder. Fine. Next thing, we need to update database. So this will create database for us. Some error, introducing foreign key constraint, user to table make cause cycles or multiple cascade paths, specify on delete, no action, or on update, no action, or modify other foreign key constraints. Okay, and this is on message for to user ID. Fine. Message from and to, because these are not uh, nullable, and if we delete user then it should also be deleted, so that's the issue. So we can define we can override the on model creating method and model builder dot user dot entity message, and we can define the relationships here. So e dot has one and goes to m dot to user dot with many dot on delete behavior, let's say no action for now, and same should go for from user. So let's delete these migrations and add migration again. This time I'm going to use the name here only, initial migration. And then update database. So we are good now. It has created the database for us. Now let's run it again and then check the postman if this request is successful. Okay, send, and we are getting invalid credential because this user does not exist, right? So let's duplicate it and let's call the register endpoint and body. It needs name, so let's say name postman user, username is postman, and let's say password is 123456. Send. Username already exists, that means we made some mistake. Account, if username exists then it should show this URL, else now. Okay, rerun. And run it again. It should succeed this time. Yes, it has created a record, and we can see the auth response. Name is postman user, and the token is this JWT token. We can verify this. So jwt.io debugger encode, we can verify this. It will have all the things. So it has this name identifier one, that is ID, user ID, and this name which is this postman user. So we have correct data in our JWT and we got the correct response. So this thing is working. So register, and now let's try login. So login, username is postman and password is, for now let's try incorrect password only, incorrect credential. And if we enter the correct password, then we will get the same response, name and then token. Fine. So API side we are done. Now in order to enable the chat functionality we need SignalR. So let's set up SignalR now. So in order to add SignalR, we will use builder.services.add SignalR. This is the simplest thing. Builder services add SignalR, and we have added this. We have registered this SignalR. Now next thing is SignalR uses a concept of hubs. So hub is basically, we could say, an abstraction layer which allows us and which does the heavy lifting for us. So it creates a connection between our server and our client for real-time communication. So it allows us to call server side methods from client side and client side methods from server side. Okay, so first thing, let's add a folder here, hubs, and we will add a class here. Let's call it chat hub or BlazingChat hub. BlazingChat hub. Okay, fine. And it will be inherited from this hub class, and we are going to use generic hub. So this hubs, it needs a type. So that type we are going to generate that here, public interface, and let's say I blazing hub, blazing chat hub client. So in this interface we will have methods which will be defined in the client side. So from client we are going to call these methods, no, from on client we are going to define these methods basically. So for example, from client we will for example, let's say void and receive message, and it's message. For now we're going to change this method down the line, but for now let's use it, and we need this thing. Now this hub, it has couple of methods. This hub t, it is an abstract class. This is hub class. It has couple of properties, but we are not interested in properties. So we have this on connected async, on disconnected async, these methods. Then we have couple of properties which we can use. So for this thing, first thing, okay, for now just generate this. We have added this class. Now we need to map this BlazingChat hub in our program.cs. So we will go here. So after controllers and before this map fall back to file index.html. This is for WebAssembly and this is for our API. So we need to inject this between these. So map hub, and then we can add the type of the hub. Then we need to define a pattern. This is basically a URL for our hub. So we will say hubs, then BlazingChat, and we should be good now. So we have set up and configured up our chat hub, and save all BlazingChat hub. We are fine. Let's add constructor, and then let's override the on connected method to check if the request is coming here or not. Okay, fine. Mhm. This is fine. Now we are almost done on the server side. Now next thing is, let's go to client side Blazor. Now if we run this, mhm, so we have this. Let's add this side. We have this home counter fetch, okay, maybe in half only. So first thing, let's remove this left panel. Let's remove everything. Let's remove everything from here. So we'll go to shared main layout. We have the sidebar nav. We will have this body directly. Mm, Index.html, page title index. Let's change this to our product name and remove all these. And in index.html, what we have here, we have bootstrap, we have our app.css, then these are generated css is loading, and everything is fine. And this bootstrap is of version 5.1. Fine. So index.html, BlazingChat. So first thing, we need to check if whenever the user is coming to this index.razor page, we need to check if user has uh, already logged in or not. Or maybe let's say when user coming to this index page, the direct domain, then we'll show the login page, right? Slash. So the login page, for login page, okay, hold on. First thing, let me check div id app, and we don't have anything else. And in main layout body, so maybe first thing, div class container fluid, and this is body. Now index page is going to be our login page. So first thing, let's have a container here. Have a row here. Then let's, so I'm not very good with designing, that's why I'm using this bootstrap classes. So call for, and we have offset also. What are those offset classes? Okay, so maybe let's add 3 columns, and the center column we are going to have h2, so we will say blazing chat login. Let's add one hr, and then we will have a form here, login form. So for this we will use edit form, and this edit form, this is a built-in Blazor component. It requires a model that we will define here. In code we will have a property of login detail. So we need to access the login DTO, so we can go to imports.razor and we can add the this using statements there. So share.dto, remove this, fine. Login DTO, we can say this login model. So this login model, let's add it as default. Edit form, we will add model as login model, and then okay, it's running already. Okay, fine. Then we will have username and password fields, right? So first thing, div class mb3, and inside this class we will use input text, and we will bind this with login model dot username. We can have display name at username, fine. Maybe let me stop, close and stop. Okay, next thing, we need validation summary. So validation message, and for it needs expression func. So we can say login model dot username, and this edit form, we are enabling the data annotation validations, so we will enable it by having this data annotation validator tag helper. We have username. The next thing, let's have password here, password, password, and then password. Fine. Next thing, we need a button to submit this form. So button type submit, classes will be btn, let's use green color only, and next the type will be, let's say, login. Login, and for logging in we will have a boolean property here which will say if we are logging in currently. So let's say processing, or yeah, processing, or let's call it busy. By default it is false, and let's define a method here. So we will say private async task, and let's say on login, or let's say login async. Edit form, and it has on valid submit. So we will say on valid submit, call this login async button. login async method. So let's add try catch finally. First thing we will say is busy is true, and finally is busy false. So whether there was some exception or it was successful, so it's better to use finally. Or maybe if the request this was successful, then there is no point of setting it back because we will navigate to chat page, right? So let's change it, and we can have maybe one more. Method here for now. Just we will see if, where we are going to write this. So this is fine. Next thing, we need the http client which we have registered. So right, we have registered that http client in program.cs. This http client we have registered and it already has this URL. So we will inject this, and in order to inject something we can directly call inject, the type, the name of the property. So it will automatically generate us a property and provide the actual value. So http client, we have it here, and now we will call this http client dot post as JSON async, and this login DTO is the type we are passing. It requires a request URI. So base address, actually this is this base address only, the main domain only. So next thing, we need API slash account slash login, and then second parameter is the body, and in this case body is this login model. Then next is cancellation token. We don't have it right now, we will implement it later. So it will give us a response. Now we will check what is the type of this response, if it was success or not. It's success status code, then it was successful. If not, then also we will set is busy to false, and we will show some error message here. In this case, login wasn't successful. Okay, now we have is success status code. Then we can extract the content from this request using response dot content dot read as string async. Now this content, this has a string content. Then we can check the auth result by simply saying await uh, JSON serializer dot deserialize async, and the type here is auth response DTO, and the value here is this content. Okay, async is applicable, supported on streams. So this auth result, we will have the actual auth result here, the name and the token. So now let's add couple of breakpoints here. This breakpoint will be this breakpoint, remove this, and add breakpoints to the controller as well. Controllers, and let's say login. Let's try to run it. So it's here. Blazing chat, error occurred, and what is the error? We can check it by opening console. It is saying edit form requires either a model parameter or an edit context parameter. We have given model parameter, right? Model login model. Yes, we have given this login. What is the issue then? Login model. We have given this login model. Is it because of null? Let's rerun. Because of null. Now we have these two things. Okay, we need to change it to password. For now, let's try if the request is going and if we can debug it. So for this, let's add some random thing. Click on login. We are here at login async. Is busy. Response. Request came to this API and this DTO. It has this username and password. Username is null. Bad request. We are here. Success status code is not correct. We got some error, right? We need to parse that error here. Then continue, and if we check it here in network tab, request is here. If we check payload, we pass the payload, and what preview the result we got, it was incorrect credential and type was status code was 400, that is bad request, so it is working. Let's fine tune this. So first thing, if we will check the status code on this response. So the type of this response is HTTP response message, and on HTTP response message we can check the status code, right? So if the status code was not successful, then we will check if, or maybe we can say switch response dot response dot status code. This is what I'm writing, right? This status code, this is HTTP status code enum. So HTTP status code from system.net. If it was bad request, then we will do something. So let's add a error message string here. By default it will be null, so it is nullable, and we will set this error message ex.message, and here if the type was bad request, then we will try to get the value. But how can we get value? Can we get it to returns us the JSON, right? So maybe for now we can simply write this thing. So we are getting the content here from the response and Then what is it complaining about? Switch case. Content. We got this content, and we will an error message. We can fine tune this later for maybe model validation errors, but for now we should be good to go with this only. If it was bad request, then we'll show this, or maybe in any case we should get this error content, string error content equals null. Then we will try to do this. So if there is no content, in that case this will fail. So that's why let's try to have it inside a try catch block. So error content, we have this error content here. For error message, we will directly show error content if it was bad, or maybe error content is already there, so we can check if okay, we will check if string dot is null or white space this error content, then only we'll try to modify this. So this error content in this case will be bad request, and if that's the case, why not just add this thing directly? Okay, so for error content we can directly say status code. Okay, we also has that reason phrase. We will say error 400 and then response dot reason phrase. Fine. So we don't need this now. Let's move it here. Fine. And this error content, we will show this error content here. If not string dot is null or white space error content, then we will show p class text danger red color text, error content. What is error message? Sorry, error content. So we will set error message equals error content, and we will use this error message. Fine. So it will show us this thing. Let's try to run it. So it's here. If I add some incorrect data, it will come here. Let's continue, and incorrect credentials. And if I add the correct data, postman 123456, continue, postman 123456. This was the correct data, right? For login, username is postman and 123456. Postman 123456. Oh, what is this? 1236. Let's try from here again. We got the data. login, continue, DTO has password 123456 and the username is postman. What is the issue then? Yeah, generate token. Here. Oh, because we didn't reset that, so it was success. Okay, my bad. So let's go back to index.razor. So whenever we are clicking on this button, we should reset this error message. So is busy true and error message null. And the point of this is busy is this: we need to disable this button if is busy. This issue. Okay, let me stop this. If it's is busy, then we will add disabled, and if it's not, then nothing. Missing attribute name. What is this? Okay, it should actually work like this. And for this, let's fix this. So for this password, we need to set the password, input text, password, display name, password, username, and let's add class. This will be form control. This is from Bootstrap. Form control, form control. This is fine. Let's wrap this also inside MB3, submit, and let's add one more button for register. Register, and let's have it BTN outline primary. Button type submit. So for this we are going to use the nav link component. What is the issue? Okay, nav link component. So for nav link we need to set href, and that will be register. We will create this in a bit. Register, and then I think href register, then class. We will use these classes and register. Let's create one more component for this register in pages. Raise a component, razor page, and it will be register. Register. I think all set. Let's see. Let's see it in action now. Login, register. If we click on register, we are on register page. Back login, then placeholder is not coming up. Did we add placeholder? Spinning. No, we didn't add placeholder. We will add it. Okay, some incorrect password. Login. Is the button disabled right now? Okay, fine. Incorrect credential. Now if we enter the correct credential 123456 login. So where is it? Auth result. Let's set up breakpoint here. Continue, and we got name and token as null, and this is because it returned name and token in camel case, and it is not accepting the default camel case. Okay, we need to set this, then continue, and this time it worked. Okay, so first thing, let's add the camel case conversion. So JSON serializer options, new JSON serializer options, and it must be having property naming policy or something related to property name case insensitivity now. Converters default include fields property naming policy, I guess, and there is new JSON naming policy dot camel case. Okay, this one. Naming policy, JSON naming policy, and camel case. Fine. Let's continue this time. Let's see. It should give us the correct values. In auth result, we should have correct name and token. Post name 123456. Continue, and auth result, and we have name and token correctly set to these two properties. Okay, fine. We have these properties now. So let's stop and make the last change. We will add placeholders. Placeholder, enter username, and same goes with this placeholder, enter password. Okay, does it have pull left and pull right classes? No, pull right. No, they have changed so many classes in Bootstrap 4 and 5. I have used Bootstrap 3 a lot, 3.7 specifically. Now we don't have these classes left. Mm, okay, maybe let's try to find out. Bootstrap 5. Let me try to find out. So it's float left, float and float start, float and float none. So float start and float end. So let's come here, and for this thing we will say float end, and for the first one we will say float start. And what else we have there? I think we should be good to go now. Let's add labels also. Label class control label username and password. Maybe let's add one HR here and one HR here. Hmm. 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 Let's run this for last time. So these didn't work because of float start end. Enter username and enter password. All good. How can we reset this? Do we have clear fix again? Let me find it out again. So there was clear fix class in Bootstrap 3.7. So using that uh, we could remove these float start end and all those. So let's see. Yes, we have this here. Clear fix and hmm. So now let's add this clear fix here, clear fix. Okay, so it's good now. We can go to register, we can come to login, and logging in successful. So for register also, let's copy the same thing. Register, let's copy this complete thing. And let's cut these two from here and add it to imports. Fine. And from here, copy everything. Go to register, paste everything, and BlazingChat register. Let's add a register here. Register login model. Let's change it to register RTO, and let's change this to register model. This login model, register model. Rename it. Okay. Register DTO. Rename login DTO to register DTO. API account register. Okay. Everything is fine. Login is sync. Register is sync. Register is sync. Username, password, and it will be register, and it will be login. and href will be blank slash, and before username we will have name, 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 and placeholder will be name. Fine. So playing chat, register, everything is fine. After logging in, after registering, everything looks fine, right? Yeah. Okay, let's try register also. Let's quickly try this. Register, playing chat, register, login. If we go to login, we can go to login, register, login, fine. Login is register. If we register it, okay. Let's add one more user, Abhay Prince. Abhay Prince, and password again the same password, and register. Okay, after registering, I'm not doing anything, right? Let's try to register it again with the same details. Did something happen? No. Network, register, username already exists. Okay, so it must have saved our username. Fine. Login, outline, primary, float, and login. BTN, outline, primary. Why isn't it working? What if we set it this only? I don't know why this login, it should have the same classes. BTN outline primary. Background color is this because it's active. So we need to set match and match type. No, what is the match? Casing no nav link match dot prefix or dot all. Because of this, register, login, register, login, fine. So we have this register. Okay, let's increase this a bit. We can have that card layout, right? Card. Let me try to find out a better view. The card layout from Bootstrap. Let's use that. Let's use this layout. Login, that is index page, index inside container, card header, and card header will be this thing. Card body will be this complete edit form. And then card footer. Okay, in this case there is no card footer, or maybe let's move this outside, and we can have our buttons in card footer. HR, remove these HRs. What happened? Div with no matching tag. Edit form after this div. This thing, and row closing div, and then inside this, let's do 2 and 2 4, and then remaining are 8. 8 div, and let's remove this thing. And one more thing, I just checked for yeah, these spinners for buttons we can have like this. So for example, the second one, this button, this loading, this one is this, right? So let's copy this, and for this submit button we will check if is busy, then this, if it's not busy, then this thing. Let's remove this, copy this, BTN primary. Instead of this we had BTN success disabled, and let's try how is it looking now. Okay, so this is this thing, username, password, enter username and password, register, login, everything is fine. And card body, does this card body has this center thing, display inline block? Oh, they removed this control label class. Yeah, they removed this control label class. So let's see what they have now for forms. Form. Okay, but before form, let's check if loading is working. Let's remove it, continue, remove. Yeah, loading. What? It is not showing that loading text. Network 200, and we didn't reset it. That's why it is showing this. But why it is not showing that loading text? Loading text. Oh, because we used this visually hidden class. That should be direct loading. So visually hidden class. This thing, we can remove this and directly have this loading here. Fine, and we can do the same thing for register, but before that let's see forms, form control. This is the form control. Okay, for label they have this form label class now. Form label, yeah. Instead of control label, it is form label. Control label, form label, form label. Fine. So let's do the same thing for this form label, form label, form label, and let's copy this design for register also. Okay, and then this edit form, let's cut this edit form out and add it. Where's the edit form? Set card body, and then let's move this edit form here, remove this thing, edit form after card footer. Okay, we already have this. And next thing, we need to change it, login, this thing, and for this it should be register. Same should go to this button, the first one. This is the first one, right? Yeah. Okay, register. Now we don't need this thing. We don't need this button. We don't need this label together with this HR. BlazingChat register to it, and looks like everything is fine now. Okay, let's check both of these for the last time. Login, register. We need to move these to left. We'll do this, but for now let's. Okay, we have this login, we have this register. Now next thing is our main chat page. Right, so main chat page. Okay, stop it for now. Let's create the chat page. Razor component, chat. Let's call it chat only. Chat page for now. Page chat. And from login and register, when the user is successfully logged in or registered, then we will navigate the user to this chat page. So for that, go to index page and let's inject navigation manager. So using navigation manager, we can do navigation from the code, from C# code. So in this case, auth result here, if we reached at this point, that means everything was successful. So we can say navigate to, and the URI, the next URI is chat. And the same thing should happen from register page. If we reach so far, then we should move to chat page. And let's inject this navigation manager on register page as well. Register page, inject and find. Save all, continue. Yeah, run it. Username, password, login, loading, and it moved to chat page. Fine. So next thing is we need to design this chat page. So I will have it will have one header which will have the current user's name, and then it will have a left sidebar or maybe right sidebar with all the users and chats. And when we click on any of the chat from left or right sidebar, then the middle section, then the center section, it will have the chat details with that particular contact, with that particular user. And at the bottom there will be a text box or text area, so which will be used to send the message. That's what we are going to do. And before that, this chat page, this should be authenticated page, right? So Blazor provides one authentication state provider, so we can implement that. But for this I will implement a custom authentication state provider. So there are two approaches. One thing, we can save or authenticated the token and the name, these details to browser's local storage, so that it can be persisted if we close the browser and open it again, so that also we can get these details. But for this I am going to use the session storage approach, but I will not use session storage. I will simply use a local state management for this Blazor app. So it will have a kind of inbuilt, not inbuilt means the state for that particular session. So when user will log in or register, we will store these inside this Blazor C# objects only, and that will be applicable, that will be available within that session only. If we close the browser, or if we close the tab, or if we move to another tab, then that state will not be there, so you'll need to log in again. That's what we are going to do. So for that, first thing what we can do, we can use, let's say, states. We'll create a folder states, and let's have a authentication state here. Authentication state, and this authentication state, let's implement I notify property changed for this. We need to implement this. Okay, and this will have first name, second. Okay, we need the full app, or how are we going to set this? Okay, fine. It will have name, it will have token, these two things. It will have these two things, and let's have a helper method, public void load, uh, maybe load data, or maybe let's call it load state, and it will have name and token, or maybe let's get it from auth response data. So we will use name, token, and then we will call this property change. We will simply um, invoke this property changed dot invoke sender will be this, and property changed event args new property changed event args. It needs a type, a name, but we are modifying both of these at the same time, so maybe we can give it null for now. So this authentication state, we will use this as a cascading parameter, and let's check. Okay, let's use this is authenticated. Yeah, let's use this property. Let's implement this as full. Prop full rule is authenticated. Is authenticated. Remove this. We will return this. And for setting, we will check if authenticated is not equal to this, then we will set it and we will notify name of is authenticated. This looks fine now, and here we will simply set is authenticated equals to, or maybe we can set one more state, unload state. I don't know if we are going to use this or no, but let's create this method. Is authenticated is false, and name will be null, and token will also be null. And let's make this nullable. So this thing, this authentication state, this is this type, we are going to use this authentication state as a uh, cascading parameter. So let's go to shared main layout and let's add code here, and let's define this property authentication state. Before that, let's add the namespace states. We have authentication state, we have authentication state property, and default value is this thing, and now we need to wrap our app inside a cascading value tag. And this cascading value, it requires a value, and this value will be this authentication state, and we can set name also. So for this, let's use this authentication state name only. So now we can access this authentication state parameter inside all our pages, because it is a this cascading value, this is a parent for this body, so we can access it everywhere. So first thing, let's go to login, so that is index. Here we will receive that as a parameter, prop authentication state authentication, and this is a cascading parameter, and it's better to use name to avoid conflicts, but for this we could have skipped it because the name is same and single type, but still explicit is fine. So this authentication state, now when everything is fine, so before navigating to chat page, we can set authentication state dot load state, and we can set this auth result. So it will set this. Now same thing we will do with register. So register page, before moving to chat page, let's do this, and before that let's access this. Okay, now this thing we can access this on chat page. Now the main thing comes here, we will override the initialized method, then we will check here if this is authenticated or not. If this is not authenticated, user is not authenticated and trying to connect to this chat page, it will automatically redirect user to the home page, or let's say login page in our case. So first let's check if we are getting things correctly or not. If is authenticated and else, let's put a breakpoint here, and fine, continue. Let's check. Now what is the issue? We missed something here. So it's here. So this is login page. If we directly connect to chat page, breakpoint, we are here, authentication state. If we check null, 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 and is authenticated is false. So this will give us else. So that is, this page is, the user is not authenticated, so we are not allowing him to see this chat page. From here we will redirect user to login page, index page in our case. Continue. Now let's check what happens after login. So postman 123456 login, and it redirected to chat page. Now let's see what we have this time. This time authenticated is true. We have name and we have token. So in this case it will go inside this if condition. That means we are good to allow this page to be seen by the user. Okay, so let's connect the last piece, inject navigation manager, inject navigation manager, and from else let's move user back to slash, and from here we will allow user to say, well, let's say we can say here welcome authentication state, authentication state dot name. Okay, so for if we can revert this, we can negate this. So if not authenticated, then we will navigate user to the home page. Let's run it. Let's see if we try to connect chat directly. It will not allow us. It will redirect user to main homepage. and after this it will pass user to this thing, and we can see welcome postman user, the name of the user. So it is good. So next thing, now we reached here. Now next thing, as I stated earlier, in next part, so this video is already very long, so in next part we are going to work on this, the main chat functionality. Basically, for till now in these 2 hours we have created the base. So now next thing, we will design this page, the left or right side panel with all the contacts, then the center panel with all the chat messages, and the center bottom with the text box or text area to send the messages, and then using the SignalR client and SignalR for real-time message. So we could open multiple windows, and one user will send a message to another, and on the another user side it will automatically show this without refreshing the page or without doing anything. It will show up the new message. So that's all we are going to do in next part. And for this I need you guys to support me. So I'm trying very hard to create these videos and all this. I'm putting a lot of efforts, but I'm not getting the views and all those. So I would request you all guys to subscribe this channel, keep supporting me, like the video, share these videos, so that I can continue to make this content what I am making. So I'll be back soon with the second part. Till then, bye bye.